श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ओम् ॐ अखण्डानन्दसम्बोधः वन्दनात् यस्य जायते गोविन्दं तमहं वन्दे चिदानन्दतनुं गुरुम्. So yesterday we were seeing that that is an important point actually. We should never forget that. Antakarana tadvritti drashtru, he said that. He said it is the seer for the mind and thought function. Mind and thought function not in two different ways. Mind or in its form of thought function. The seer is a self. And the important point is, he didn't say it is the seer of all these things, etc. He said it is the seer of the thought function, meaning the thought function is what is the cause for the creation. There is no creation other than the thought function. Okay? Now, tat chaitanyam ātmā iti avikriyam nityam avikriyam tat chaitanyam ātmā iti sūkṣmaya buddhya buddhyasva. Understand that this is the self, which is satyam jnanam anantam. Satyam nityam, jnanam chaitanyam, avikriyam anantam. So it is of the nature of existence, knowledge and bliss. So this sūkṣmaya buddhya buddhyasva, understand it through the subtle knowledge. After saying this, these are all things which are the inherent nature of the self. He is going to explain the inherent nature of the self now. We are talking about the self. After discussing about the non-self, we are entering into the discussion of self. So he is going to give the description about the self. Self cannot be defined as this or that, because if you define it as this or that, then it becomes an object. Self is not an object. Therefore, how do you understand? Then you have to understand the characteristics of self. And self does not have characteristics. So what does the self have? Self has nothing. Nirguṇaśca, nirdharmakaḥ. It is devoid of any characteristics, devoid of any attribute. All this. So what are we seeing here now is the inherent nature of this self. Esha pratyaksvaprakāśo niraṃśah asaṅgaḥ śuddhaḥ sarvadaikasvabhāvaḥ nityaḥ nirīhaḥ sākṣī cetā kevalo nirguṇaśca. Esha pratyaksvaprakāśah niraṃśah asaṅgaḥ śuddhaḥ sarvadaikasvabhāvaḥ nityaḥ nirīhaḥ sākṣī cetā kevalo nirguṇaśca. All these beautiful words, svaprakāśa, esha pratyak, this self, svaprakāśa, self-effulgent. These, every statement here can make one single statement for Brahmajnana. The problem with us is we are more interested in these kind of one-off statements which declare that you are self. You are not the mind. Idiot, we already know that. You are not the mind. We are not the five koshas. We are not the three different avastha states, the waking, dream, deep sleep state. We are not the three kinds of bodies, cross, subtle cause. We know that, but we don't know that. That is the problem. So all these one-off statements, because I read these people, they put in their WhatsApp status these kind of beautiful words. What use it is of? These statements don't give you Brahmajnana unless and until you go through the traditional method, the approach, you will never realize self. So that is what is important. Nānyah pantha vidyate should be very clear. Otherwise, there is all these idiots. We are not saying this. These people who said that are idiots. We can give them benefit of doubt. Entaro mahanabhavulu antarikina vandanamulu. There is a Telugu statement which says, who is greater? The great people. My salutations to all of them. Let us salute and then leave it up. If it is not traditional, that traditional one-point statement cannot be understood, because we see the politicians say that I didn't mean that. They said that, but they say I didn't mean that. Why? Because it can be it is prone to interpretations. Any statement is prone to interpretations. That is why he says, Esha. Esha means this topic which we are discussing, Pratyaka, is the self, the individual self. Individual self means the absolute self is individual self. But since you are suffering from the problem with reference to the body, he says Pratyaka. Swaprakāśa. Swaprakāśa, swayam prakāśa, they are all same. Self-effulgent. Self-effulgent. It is not dependent upon anything else for illuminating itself. That is exactly what my point is. The opponent will say, these idiots will say. Why? Why do I need Shastras? I meditate, and at one point of time, I realize since self is self-effulgent, I will understand. I don't need a proof of Shastra for that. Idiot, that is the biggest problem. Because there were so many smart people, smarter than you, or you all grouped together, who got stuck in different levels, different stages, these Mahatmas. So, Esha pratyaksvaprakāśo, this is self-effulgent. You have to approach it through the tradition. Why? Self-effulgent. You understand? Now tell me, what is self-effulgent? Self-effulgent means, what is self-effulgent actually? Okay. Effulgence, you know, self-effulgence. The sun has light, self-effulgent. I have light, self-effulgent. I don't need another sun for illumining the sun. Very good. But tell me, how will the self, which has nothing else to illumine, be self-effulgent? Now I understand. Probably my head illumines the toe, the leg, and the leg portion illumines the head portion. An example. The top portion illumines the bottom portion, left portion illumines the right portion, then vice versa. So, self-effulgent. Over. No. niraṃśo. The self is without any parts, limbs. Amśah. Now, how can you understand the self-effulgent? Oh, like the fire is there in the sun. There is some saṅgaḥ. It has no association with anything else. Because sun has fire. Does earth have fire? No. Externally, no. So, self-effulgent, that kind of association with fire for that thing which we call as sun. Because basically, sun and earth, they are two round things. So, one has fire around it, the other has not have fire around it. That's the difference. So, that is the difference. But still, sun illumines everything because of the helium gas. The helium gas gets burnt and it illumines. So, similar to the helium gas, something is there in association with the self. With that understanding, I can. For if you are smarter like that, he says, śuddhaḥ. Śuddhaḥ, pure. Pure means defectless. It is not associated with anything. Asaṅgaḥ, it is defectless. It is pure. So, there is no association with helium gas, etc. Nothing. There is no association with anything. Okay. I have no association with anything or anyone, then still I am prone to different kinds of mood swings, right? So, what about the self? Sarvadaikasvabhāvaḥ. Self does not have any of these mood swings because it is of the same nature. Ekasvabhāvaḥ. It is of the same nature. Oh, Even mood swings I can tolerate actually. But one nature is very difficult for me to tolerate. Why? See, we say, oh, that fellow, he is always long faced. Oh, that fellow, he is always like dog faced. We see people who are always grim face, long face, sad face. If self is one of these, then you are doomed. So he says, nityaḥaṇḍānandarūpo. It is of the nature of a nityaḥaṇḍānandarūpo. Anandarūpa. That word itself is enough. But he says Anandarūpa. Nityaḥaṇḍānandarūpo. Why? Anandarūpa. Self is not any of these long faced, etc. Self is Anandarūpa. It is of the nature of a happiness, bliss. Very good. But bliss also, he says, akhanda bliss. I'm happy actually. I have no problems. What kind of coffee is this? You are a happy person, but that one coffee spoils your mood for few minutes. Then you will become a happy person again. Then something, few minutes, then happy, then angry, then there are different kind of stages, right? So you are basically a happy person, but in between there is a gap in that happiness. So to answer that, he says, akhanda anandarūpa. The self is of the nature of a breakless bliss, unbroken bliss. Unbroken bliss, very good. But there are 3 levels of bliss. We saw earlier also. Taittiriya Upanishad says, Priya, Moda, Pramoda. 3 levels. Priya means when you see an object, you have the happiness called Priya. When you gain the happiness, it is called as Moda. When you experience the happiness, it is called as Pramoda. So, it can be any of these 3. Still, it can be called as bliss. Unbroken bliss. It can be Priya, it can be Moda. That is of no use. Because you have not experienced it. Since there is no experience, it cannot be, even if it is unbroken bliss, it is of no use. So he says, nityaḥaṇḍānandarūpo. It is of unbroken of bliss, of the nature of experience. There is no gradations. It's always of the nature of that unbroken bliss, which is the absolute. Okay. Now, bliss is there. Okay. Now, the happiness experience is there. It needs an action or desire. So, nirīhaḥ. See, coffee gives you happiness, right? So, coffee gives you happiness means you have to go and buy a coffee or you have to prepare a coffee to get that happiness, right? So, he says, nirīhaḥ, iha cheshta. It does not have any activity. It is always in that bliss without any activity. So, desire, iha also can be desire. So, there is neither desire nor activity association here. Okay. Experience, no experience. It is always of the bliss. So, it is not a changing. Desire or effort is not there. And we saw janāti iccati yatate. Knowledge, then desire, then action. Now you have said there is no action. Then you said there is no desire also. Then I conclude there is no knowledge also. Right? So he says, no. Nirīhaḥ, sākṣī. Sākṣī, it is sākṣī. Sākṣī means sākṣī is not the witness as we understand in the worldly sense. Because if you accept it in that sense, then you need a sākṣiya. Sākṣiya means the object of sākṣī. sākṣya. Sākṣiya means the object of the sākṣī. sākṣi. Now, Since there is no sakshya, because the self is a non-dual, there is nothing to witness. Therefore, sākṣī is another name for the self, inherent nature of the self. It is not something which is practiced. Okay, since there is no sākṣī, there is no desire, and earlier you said nirīhaḥ, there is no action. There is no action, there is no desire. Therefore, there is no knowledge also. If you think, he says cetā. Cetā means knowledge. Chaitanya, consciousness. Cetā can be knowledge, chit, knowledge, or it can be consciousness. It is knowledge, ever, absolute. Okay, then, okay, where did it gain this knowledge? Of knowledge of what? All these questions are useless, because kevalo, it is a one non-dual. There can be knowledge of, there cannot be knowledge of anything else, nor can there be its knowledge in different stages. Kevalo, it is alone. And are these attributes? Nirguṇaśca. These are not attributes, they are all its inherent nature. Okay, now same thing is continued. naiva pratyagjāyate vardhate no kiñcinnāpakṣīyate neti nāśam ātmā nityāh śāśvato'yaṃ purāṇah nāsau hanyo hanyamāne śarīre nahanti hanyate ca na hanyamāne śarīre, etc. In Bhagavad Gita, whatever said, he is bringing that. Na eva pratyagjāyate vardhate no kiñcinnāpakṣīyate na eti nāśam ātmā nityaḥ śāśvato'yaṃ purāṇah nāsau hanyo hanyamāne śarīre. Now here he is talking about the śuddhaḥ vikara. He is going to bring it in the next shloka again. śuddhaḥ vikara means yaska in his nigandu. It's a kind of dictionary for the Vedic words. So yaska in his nigandu has said 6 transformations for every object. Jayate, it's born. Asti, gains existence. Vardhate, grows. Viparinamate, transforms. Apakṣīyate, decays. Vinashyati, gets destroyed. Every object undergoes these 6 transformations. So, to establish the self is not an object, he says, pratyak naiva jāyate. The self, pratyak, the self is never born. Na eva jāyate, it is never born. Because to give birth to self, who is capable? And what is that which can be cost for the self? Self is costless. Where can there be another? If there is something else, then there can be a cost. There is nothing other than self, so there can be no cost for the self. So therefore, self is unborn. It is not born. Okay? No. No vardhate. It is not born, but it may grow, right? Something may not be born, but it can grow. No vardhate, cannot grow. It doesn't grow also. Okay, even if it doesn't grow, like I buy a car, it doesn't grow, but still after a point there is depreciation, right? So he says kiñcinnāpakṣīyate, there is no depreciation, there is no decay also here. Of no kind. Decay or decreasing state of no kind. Nāśam na eti, and it does not undergo destruction. Oh, it may not be born, but it can undergo destruction. What kind of logic is that? You understand yourself? You hear yourself? Whatever is born undergoes destruction. Yat kritakam tad anityam. That is logic. If it is not born, how can he understand? How can it undergo destruction? Oh, don't teach me logic, because I am a logician. Why? It need not be born, but it can undergo destruction. How? The pot is born. Yes, I said pot is born, it will undergo destruction. Wait. Before the pot is born, what was that? Prayer absence of pot. Pragabhava, we call it. Prayer absence. Good. Is prayer absence born? No. But does it come to an end? Yes, once the pot is created. See? It need not have a beginning, but it can definitely have an end. Likewise, post-absent, it has a beginning, but it never has an end. Can be also. So he says that also is not possible. Even if you bring that kind of logic, that the prayer absence does not have a beginning, but it undergoes destruction, that logic also is not possible. nāśam na eti, it doesn't undergo destruction. ātmā nityāḥ. ātmā nityāḥ. This ātmā is eternal. Nityaḥ, trikala abhādyatvam nityatvam, that which does not undergo destruction in all the 3 periods of time is nitya. That is how you have to understand it. Why? śāśvataḥ. Śāśvata means always existent. Nitya means always existent. śāśvata means, why 2 words? Why waste 2 words? No, be careful here. Nitya is eternal, true, but it is in association with time. Trikala abhādyatvam nityatvam, that which is not negated in all 3 periods of time is nitya. 3 seconds, it becomes nitya. It can be qualified as, to be called as nitya. Even if you don't accept that, this creation is nitya because the creation exists. You will not see its beginning or end, but it exists. So we say nitya is trikala abhādyatvam, true, but it comes into existence, right? Listen to me carefully. Trikala abhādyatvam, it is not negated in all 3 periods of time. In the time frame, it is not negated. The creation is not negated in the time frame, because time is something which is having as clear, like in the graph they say time space diagram, they say space, when it comes into existence, at that very moment time also comes into existence. The ignorance and self association gives birth to space. The ignorance, self association gives birth to time also. What is time? What is kala? Ajnana, ātmā, saṅyoga, asdo association. Okay, so anything in time is negated by saying nitya. It is nitya. It exists in all 3 periods of time. But beyond the time also, before the time also, idam ekeva agra asit, ātmā va idam ekeva agra asit, ātmā only remained before the creation. śāśvataḥ. Even before the creation of time, it existed. Therefore, śāśvataḥ. It is eternal, beyond the time also. Okay. purāṇah. Purāṇa means generally old. It is very old, older than the oldest. Then throw it away. We'll get something new. Logic. So purāṇa word should be interpreted again. Pura api nava iti purāṇah. Though it is old, it is ever new. Something, only when it is an association with something else, there can be friction, there can be all this gravitation, pull, push, etc. It can undergo some destruction, some damage. But this is ever new. Though it is old, it is ever new. Pura api nava iti purāṇa. That is why you have to interpret it in that way. Otherwise, you will give, throw away that old self. We'll follow this religion which has a new self, new God, something else. So he says, no. Pura api nava. Though it is old, it is ever new. Asau śarīre hanyamāne nānāvidhā. Though the body is beaten or killed or anything, this self is not killed or beaten. Hanya. Hanana means to beat or to kill. That never takes place with respect to the self. Okay. Now, we spoke about the 6 different transmissions for an object from Yaska that he is bringing. janmāstitvavivṛddhayaḥ pariṇatiścāpakṣatirnāśanaṃ dṛśyasyaiva bhavanti ṣaḍvikṛtayo nānāvidhā vyādhayaḥ sthūlatvādi nīlatādyapi mitir varnāśramadipratha dṛśyanteva pusho na ātmana ime tadvikriya sakshiṇaḥ. I was talking about that. This one single line statement, etc. for knowledge, they are all useless. Useless. This whole thing is because Sanatana Dharma gives leeway for everything. Because this fellow, he will say, God is everywhere. Why do we have to go to temple and worship? This happens only in Sanatana Dharma. The Hindu will always say, God is everywhere. Idiot, do you even realize what you say? If God is everywhere, as you say, as you believe, He is. There is no doubt. But if you believe in it, will you cheat others? Will you say lie? Will you do wrong things? No, you cannot, because God is everywhere. You understand that. Since you are doing all the wrong things, you should not say God is everywhere. God is everywhere. But still, since it is not understood by you, you have to go to the temple. God is everywhere. These are all idiots. Okay. So here he says, janmāstitvavivṛddhayaḥ pariṇatiścāpakṣatirnāśanaṃ nāṣam dṛśyasyaiva bhavanti śarvvikṛtayo nānāvidhā vyādhayaḥ sthūlatvādi nīlaṃśo api mitihi varna āśramādi prathā dṛśyante vapuṣah na ca ātmaṇah ime tadvikriya sakshiṇaḥ. janmāstitvavivṛddhayaḥ pariṇatiścāpakṣatirnāśanaṃ śarīre. We'll take all that. All the 6 transformations, śarīre, vikriti means transformations. All the 6 kinds of transformations. Janma, birth. Astitva, existence. What is this? Okay. Why we have to understand this? Something which is born, you normally accept it to have existence, right? Need not. A baby is born, but if it is still born, or if it is like it's dead while being born, then it doesn't have any existence, right? So birth, then having life, existence, astitva. Then once the baby is born, it has existence, it has life, it starts growing. Vivṛddhayaḥ, it starts growing. Okay. Now, after growing, at one point of time, the growth stops. The height, the height stops. Then pariṇati, he grows on the sides, or he shrinks on the sides. So pariṇati, there is a transformation. Growth stops, then there is a transformation. He becomes fat or lean or things like that. Transformation. Then at one point of time, apakṣatihi, there is a decay. The health deteriorates. And at one point of time, finally, nāśam, over. Everything is over. He is dead. So birth, existence, growth, then transformation, then decay, finally death. Śaḍvikṛtayo, all these 6 transformations, dṛśyasyaiva bhavanti na ātmaṇah, they are only for the objects. Dṛśya, the seen, the objects, not for the self, the seer. That's ātmā, you have to understand that here. They are only for the objects. Not just this, there are other things also. Nānāvidhā vyādhayaḥ, the different kinds of disease. Even in one disease, there are different varieties. Diabetes, we say, there is one diabetes which is a type 1. Then there is another diabetes, there is type 2. And among them, there is a different varieties. This kind of type 2, that kind of type 1, etc. Corona, we know corona. In corona, this Chinese virus, what happened? They started with alpha, beta, gamma, then they said B1, B2, B3. I'm not even talking about the vitamins. Vitamin B, B complex. No. In this, they started giving B1, B2, B3, and then they improved it with versions, like the software version, 1.01, 6.71, like that. They started giving versions, 1.01, 0.02, etc. Okay. Now, different kinds of diseases, vyādhayaḥ, diseases. sthūlatvādi, fat, lean, etc. Nīlatādi, white, black, dark, etc. Mitihi meaning hanyamāne, measurement, height, etc. Varna ashramadi pratha, and the varna, brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya, shudra, etc. And ashrama, brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasa. So these pratha, these famous things, this path, these famous things, bapusha dṛśyante ime. These are all seen only for the body. When I say height, it is for the body. When I say the weight, it is for the body. When I say the color, it is for the body. When I say the other things, other attributes, they are all only for the body. Tad vikriya sakshinaha, that which is a nacha ātmā tad vikriya sakshina, not for the self, which is the seer of all the transformations. The self does not see the transformations. These transformations takes place on the self. Self, it remains as the substratum for all these transformations. So the substratum does not get affected. Only the superimposed gets affected. That is the idea here. Okay. Let's see. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamādaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.